Welcome to On Topic Retro, Episode 8. I'm John Cummins, and joining me tonight is Chris Logel and Will Schulz. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing well, thank you.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Tonight we're going to be discussing a special and at one point in time controversial game, the one and only Bionic Commando from Capcom themselves. This is going to be a fun one. And it is also a special request from Chris, so we'll probably be hearing him talk a whole lot about this game, I imagine.
Yeah, it's the one and the only because I'm very disappointed that they try to do sequels of this and it never reached the quality of this game.
Yeah, if anyone listens to my other show, Retrologic, they'll know my thoughts on the PS3, Xbox 360 era remake. It's garbage. It's bad. It's horrible. Like they couldn't get anything right on that game.
They tried to do it in 3D and it just didn't work.
Well, it's not even like the 3D part of it is fine. It's just a grappling command. Like it's way too complicated. None of it's explained very well. Like I sat in the tutorial for probably 30 minutes trying to figure out something. It's just not put together very well. And there's plenty of like inspirational games to use to create this mechanic in the 3D space. I mean, just look at Spider-Man games. That's Bionic Commando essentially. Like sling a web up and grab something. Like they could have made this pretty simple, but it's way overly complicated. You end up swinging in all kinds of places you don't mean to, and like try to fire while doing that it's just not fun. I've tried several times to get into it and keep stopping in like the same spot.
Yeah, I think as the Bionic Commando purist, I want to keep this in 2D as well. I just like it in that space.
I don't know that Capcom will ever give us another 2D Bionic Commando, but I'm all for it if they decide to.
No, especially not if we're talking about the story the story notes we're going to get into in a minute.
Yeah.
No.
They could figure out a way to wrap it around. I mean, we still have Wolfenstein and stuff. Like it's out
true.
there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
To me, the world is more open about at least talking about these things. It's not as like taboo as it used to be.
Maybe it's not as taboo as it should be.
It's like,
exactly.
For better and for worse, that's true.
Like, not to be too political, but
yeah, exactly. Like I mean,
now.
I'm not saying that I'm for any of these things, but
of course,
I'm definitely against. I'm a historian. Like, I don't like bottling things up. Like, these things did happen. The way you learn from them is like you have to know that these things happened. Like, our history repeats itself.
No, for sure. You need to acknowledge it at least.
Exactly. Like, you can't just erase things from history, and I don't know. That's a whole nother topic. Like, we could get on that for a while, but definitely don't want to shy away from the discussion, and none of it's like terrible. So, I mean, it's just kind of mentioning some things that could be sensitive. Just wanted to throw a warning out there.
At the end of the game, the right people explode, and that's all that really matters.
It's in some ways it's somewhat accurate. So I'll accept that. But anyway, we're way too early to be getting into that. First, we need to talk about where you played this and what your experiences are. So we'll hop into that. Chris, you can go first since it's your game.
Oh man, this was one of my first NES experiences. I didn't know the game, but I did spend a lot of time with my cousin playing this at their house. I loved it, even though it was crazy frustrating trying to navigate where to go. But it was this new platformer and had this new mechanic. You're not jumping, you're grappling. So it was really exciting, and I've just really always enjoyed it.
So who does it better, Bionic Commando or Metroid?
Oh, Bionic Commando.
Uh, yeah. I mean, it
Hate me
depends
for
on the
saying that.
Metroid game, I guess. Some
Yeah,
Metroids do it better than others, but
Tim's gonna hate me for saying that, but I got told like it is, Tim.
I think I caught Will off guard because I usually ask him to go first. It seems like when he's on here.
Hey, it's totally okay with me. Let's see. I did not really play this one a lot growing up. I think I rented it once and got just really incredibly frustrated with it. I couldn't make heads or tails of it. Um, Playing it now through perfectly legal means that are in no sorts of gray areas at all is it's going better. It's going better. I know what I'm doing now. I know what I'm supposed to do. I can get around. I can repress my distaste for the lack of a jump button. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, as you get going, the grappling gets a little more natural. Like understanding that you can kind of pull yourself up to get on top of a platform helps. Like I remember early playing as a kid, like trying to swing myself up onto a platform and like not understanding that I can just like pull myself up there. That was kind of a hard one to play the game
It's
without knowing.
it's more of a principle issue for me than it is like having trouble getting around, because I feel like there shouldn't be like the chest high walls. If you, like you can't even just pop over it, and that
Or the
Exactly. Yeah,
barrel.
there's no like hurdle button or
yeah,
something, you know.
like like guy, you're taller than this block. Just go,
Just
fall
over.
forward. I don't know.
I mean, and I was going to take the half empty look at it, but for me, the grappling really gave you the opportunity to be creative, to move around. I used the hook for everything, so I would grab the power ups, or I would shove enemies out of the way if I really didn't want. I was comfortable where they were, how close they were getting. I just thought it was a different mechanic that allowed you to really think outside the box.
Oh, for sure. And there are definitely, most of this game, it works absolutely great. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It's just every once in a while, I'm like, if I didn't have to execute an overly complex series of maneuvers to get over this crate, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, there's definitely like I could tell the Capcom when they designed this, they wanted to give you that sense of like being powerful because of how many different things that the grappling hook can do.
Yeah.
Chris mentioned like you can push enemies out of the way. You can actually, if you kill an enemy, you can grab the item that they drop with the grappling hook without actually having to go retrieve it, which is very nice whenever the enemy is on the other side of a gap in the floor where you can't jump. You even have to try to swing over there. So, I mean, yeah, it's the grappling hook is the end all be all of the game, and I understand that what they're doing, but there's just some parts of the levels where the execution is not like great. Like whenever there's several little walls in a row, like you said, it's like he could easily just hurdle over these, like a step over them or whatever. They're like sandbags essentially. It's like you should be able to get over these.
I
But
mean, you go to the safe area, and for some reason, the safe area has an item on the other side of a spike pit, I guess. And you're like, well, this isn't crazy safe, is it? Like, why is that there? And so
it's not
I would
safe,
always
it's neutral.
right. But then I realized, I could just grapple hook it and grab it.
Yeah,
I don't have to go risk killing myself.
it's a neutral area, but like the first one of your guys is outside. He's like, hey, got some flare bombs inside for you. They're really going to help you out. You go inside, like, oh, good. I see you've placed it on the other side of the death pit. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh,
Like we're worried
he
the
did
wrong
that
guy.
so no one else would get it.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine he's putting it there, and the guy's like, no, don't worry. The guy's got a grappling hook. It's all good.
It's
He'll load you.
He's the only one with a grappling hook, so he's going to get this no problem. Everyone else will fall in the pit. It's not a big deal. Yeah, heaven forbid they just give you the item. Like you already,
like
you
he
had
could
to
just
talk
have
to
it
the
on
guy.
him,
Yeah, exactly. It's like
I mean,
you really want the rocket launcher, but I'm not just going to give it to you. You got to go get this.
I'm other than the grappling hook mechanic of the game, I'm a huge James Bond fan. So this game does have the espionage, the wiretapping,
does.
the
it does.
it's a huge part of it, and I love it.
I mean, it's very simplified, but yeah, it's there. Like, you definitely have the option to do so. And
And there's trash talk in there, like, "Oh, now we have you."
yeah,
And hey, if you're going to Area 4, like you're just tapping on two guys talking over lunch or something.
Yeah, it's
like
like,
that.
yeah, we're going to go to Area 4. It's like, oh, man, you need to bring some flares. Don't forget.
Yeah. Right after he told him, like, "Oh, wait, what'd you do yesterday?" Like, sort of like, yeah, it's some of the dialogue is pretty funny.
It is. It is.
all right. Well, I think we've been getting more into some other parts of the game, so we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the just the general overview, development, and music, and things of that nature in the general game discussion. So, Bionic Commando was released on December 6th of 1988 in the US, July 20th, 1988 in Japan, and October 26th of 1990 in the UK. So, I mean, you'd have to wait. Like, Super Nintendo was almost out whenever the UK got this game. Kind of be a little bit of a disappointment at that point. Also, this game, tonight we're talking about the NES version of this game. I did want to clarify there is an arcade version of this game that is quite a bit different, as we were kind of talking about before we got the show kicked off. Basically, the only thing that stayed was the fact that you have a grappling hook. Everything else is very different. I don't know that, like, I would have to imagine that the NES is probably a better version of this game.
Most people seem to feel that way. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't played the arcade version of it, but I did a little bit of kind of comparing and contrasting online, and people seem to like the NES way more.
Yes. This usually makes the list of very few games that the NES actually does better than arcade. Also, there was a little bit of a name change from the US to Japan, because in Japan this game was called Hitler's Resurrection Top Secret, which is apparently was not going to fly in the US. So they went ahead and basically made this game a sequel to Commando, which I don't think it is intentionally done that way in Japan. I think that was more of a thing that got brought on because in the US they couldn't use their original storyline. And when the game was localized for the US, they removed all the Nazism, they removed all the swastika stuff that was in there. And it was all replaced with like a bird insignia, and the bad guys are now called bads. Or even in the game. Yeah, they got real creative when they did this one.
Yeah.
But then whenever you read the game manual, the manual still refers to them as the Naz, which is still sounds kind of like Nazis, but not completely. So they did do some changes there. And then the enemy general was renamed Kilt or Killet. I don't know how you.
Mr. Kilt.
Yeah, Kilt.
Kilt.
Mr. Kilt.
I wasn't sure because they don't actually like say his name. NES isn't capable of that. So, in Japan, his name was Wiseman.
I think you pass him in one of the in one of the safe.
You do.
You do. Yep.
But yeah.
And then also there was a change. The main antagonist was in Japan a revived version of Adolf Hitler, which was definitely not going to fly in the U.S. And he was changed to a character called Master D, which I don't know if it's any better.
I mean, I want to be a fly in the room when they were storyboarding this.
Oh
game,
yeah,
and they bring Hitler back.
Well, yeah. I mean, even in Japan, like this is a crazy. Like I guess things were a lot more loose over there, but like still kind of a crazy thing to talk
Japanese
about
were
and
on
bring
this.
back. Yeah, they were on that side, but at the same time, like they were kind of like brought in without a choice. It seemed, to some extent, and I would still be upset about what happened after all that. So I don't know if I'd be
I
making
don't.
games about it.
I'm not from Japan, but I don't know if there's any more sympathy for Nazis than there
I
are
don't
here.
think
I don't.
so. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was just recognized as bad practice all the way around. I don't think there was too many sympathizers afterwards.
Yeah, I don't think sympathy is the right term, but you definitely see a lot more kind of visual nods and
Exactly.
winks to that kind of thing
Yes.
in their media.
I mean, and even we kind of talked about it a little bit before the show got kicked off too. About you do have games like Wolfenstein that kind of touch on this subject a little bit as well. Not in the same way, but almost
Yeah.
equally as, or if not more extreme uh, versions of that. But I mean, it's just something that was in the game in Japan and clearly didn't make it over here for obvious reasons. But it's definitely still something to note down because it's part of the history of the game. This is
Yeah.
how, I mean, basically how we got the game.
It's a little impressive that it made it at all with just this kind of problem from the outset where it's like, we are going to
Yeah,
have to change everything.
exactly. If this was, I mean, today it's a little bit easier to get around. I mean, back then it was just almost like if it was even somewhat difficult to localize, it just didn't happen. There's so many Famicom games that did not make it over to the
Yeah.
US because localization was a nightmare, and a lot of the carts just didn't have the space for it. If it had any kind of like uh, dialogue or
Hmm.
anything in there, they just didn't do it because of just limitations of the console itself. So yeah, this one making its way over is just short of a miracle when you look back at it. Uh,
I mean, if you look at the game itself, like there are films like Starship Troopers where the not the subtext of the Nazis, but the sort of the military complex that they are. Like it's a bird instead of a swastika, but the uniforms look a lot the same. That you understand that this is a horrible the other side is this horrible regime that you're supposed to take down, and that's what you're doing in the game.
Hmm.
So it's they might have swapped some symbols, but the overall theme is
yeah,
still pretty much the
the
same.
intent is still there. Like you still have the understanding that hey, there's a good side and there's a bad side, um, and what these people are doing or what you're trying to stop is doesn't need to happen. So the main story of the game is still intact. It's just everything gets renamed and some things get swapped around. So something also of note that whenever the game was brought over to the U.S., it actually was made a little bit easier. The difficulty was brought down, uh, which I could see that. Like I could see this game being a little bit more difficult. It doesn't necessarily have to be. Uh, like I think they probably could have left it there, but again, as Americans, it wasn't. It was too hard for us.
I mean, the enemies still spontaneously sort of appear out of a lot of different places and in difficult places, which makes the grappling and avoiding them
Yes.
Hmm.
not crazy, not very easy.
Yeah. I mean, it all goes back to like talking about Mario, how we didn't get lost levels, that kind of thing. You constantly hear about when these games get localized, they get made easier in this time period.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine what uh, Dark Souls would have been like if it was a game in the 80s. But yes, well, one more thing the music was composed by, uh, I guess, Junko
Yes.
Tamiya.
Yep.
And at that point in time, they were credited as the pseudonym, was it Gondamin? Which I
The
guess
Gondamin.
Gondamin?
Gondamin. Sorry.
Gondamin. Yeah, I'm not. I'm horrible at pronouncing names. I'll butcher them every time. But this is also another thing of like the 80s where composers and designers and things like that weren't like directly credited on the games. So this was probably a way to actually get credited without, too much trouble by going by a pseudonym at the time. Very similar to authors and things like that. But the game definitely has some pretty kicking music. Like, I do enjoy the music on the game. It's kind of made me
I think that
want to go back and listen and play the arcade version to see how different the music was, because I know it had a different composer.
the music definitely sets the mood for some of the stages where you're really the tension really ratchets up because of it.
Yeah, you could definitely tell like the neutral zones are pretty laid back music wise, and then like as soon as you get into the next area and it's full of action, like they definitely pick it up. Like they do a good job kind of swinging that back and forth. And I meant to write down the composer for the arcade version, but I forgot. And that's pretty much what I have for the just the general game development. It's not a crazy story, but as far as development goes, but you can definitely tell they had to make this work to bring it over. It wasn't just a given, and we appreciate them for it.
Yeah,
is overall might not be someone's favorite game, but it's definitely one of the better NES titles of that time. I liked it a lot better than Commando. I'll say that.
For sure.
So I guess now we'll talk a little bit about the story. And this is the US version of the story, I believe. I think there is some like references that talk a little bit about the other side of it for the Japanese game. Bionic Commando takes place sometime in the 1980s and centers on two warring states, the Federation and the Empire. The Federation forces discover top secret documents about Albatross, an unfinished project developed by the Empire's predecessor. The Bads, also known as the Naz, or the Nazis in the Japanese version. The Imperial leader, Generalissimo, Kilt, decides to complete the project himself. Upon learning the Empire's plot, the Federation sends in its national hero, Super Joe, which is, in our version of the story, supposed to be the main character from the Capcom game Commando, to infiltrate the Empire, but he is captured. And then the Federation sends in a second operative named Lad, very creative, to rescue him and to uncover the secret behind Albatross Project. Lad is a member of the FF, the Double Force Battalion, a team of commandos specially trained to use wired guns to infiltrate the enemy bases. So, according to the story from the manual, his grappling hook is a gun.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a little different from what we get in the future with Bionic Commando.
Yeah.
I mean, because I didn't make it very far in this game as a kid, I always thought Super Joe was a myth.
Yeah.
I always thought, there's not a Super Joe. I'm going in here and something's going to turn on its head. It's going to be like, oh, there was never a Super Joe. This is what you're really supposed to do now. And that's where the espionage story came in. We're like, he's been a myth the whole time.
You were Super Joe the whole time.
You were Super Joe, right?
Yeah.
You had amnesia.
I think it's funny that, classic Capcom, they're like, we're going to just make this game into a sequel. Everything has to have a sequel.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, definitely, I don't know. And, I mean, Commando is okay. I didn't play it near as much as a kid, but I definitely liked Bionic Commando a lot better than the original Commando game. And if somebody like if they didn't have similar names and like hadn't thrown that in, I would have never even like guessed that this would have been a sequel to it.
Yeah, I think if I ever fought, if I ever, I was growing up, I think if I ever got to Super Joe, he would be he'd be the shell of this myth that we heard about him. So he's not as super as he was cranked up to be, or he wasn't real.
Yeah, I mean,
But
as a kid, I
He
was
could have been the bad guy.
yeah, something like that. He's either going to be, turned into a bad guy, or you're going to find him like dead somewhere, type deal. Like
Yeah.
you're there to rescue him, but too late.
too late.
Yeah, type deal. And I mean, yeah, as a kid, I never completed the game, so I kind of had to wait till later to fully understand what was all happening. I mean, and as an 8-year-old kid, you don't fully understand any of the story, especially not the Japanese side of it.
No.
Wouldn't find that out till way later whenever somebody mentioned it, and I was like, man, I did not know that. And it's like, definitely got to go do some research now. And yeah, I mean, it's just a totally different game altogether. So, story out of the way, I think we'll talk a little bit about some gameplay and what we think about that. We've already talked a little bit about that and experiences, but some of us are more fans of the grappling than others, and we could talk a little bit about some of the different items or weapons that you acquire to complete certain missions. We talked a little bit about that as well. The espionage aspect of it, where you'll tap into the phone line, like we said, of somebody talking about something you need to have for particular levels. And then as a kid, I never did figure out like where I needed to go to get it to go to the next place. And like what you don't put it all together, and just the navigation itself is pretty like I didn't understand that either. So like there's a lot of just flying around and just checking places out. So I mean, if you do that, it's a 12-hour game,
I mean, as a kid, I was notorious for never reading the manual. So the two elements that I would always get mixed up on, using the right communicator to wiretap or communicate, because I know they change colors and I'd find new ones, and then I never know to use them. So when I would get to that level when I was supposed to have the different communicator, it would just be ... because I'm using the wrong one.
Exactly, yeah.
And I can't hack in. So I've lost that information. The other thing that it took me, I think, I don't know how many years I've been playing the game before I discovered on the overall map, when you're traveling around and you encounter the enemy, I always thought, well, this is the thing I want to avoid the most. It just seems like useless, wasted, extra risk of you being killed. Well, I accidentally killed the right guy, found the little insignia thing, finished the rest of my lives, and it's like, continue? Wait a minute, you can do that?
You should pick the item that
Because
lets
I
you continue.
beat this game on 3 lives forever. And that's why I was always so frustrated never getting anywhere. And then all of a sudden it's like continue, and then I started to search out for them. And then by the time I had 6 or 7 continues, like, this game is going to be a piece of cake. I've got almost infinite lives here. And that's when I finally found it to the end. I found out Super Joe was real. What? And I got to the end. And it was like, this is what the hell took me 20 years to figure all this stuff out, man, if I just read it up somewhere. If I just looked it up. But I enjoyed that was one of my gaming accomplishment of life. I gotta say, I know it's a lot, but yeah.
Hey man, it's all about the adventure of getting there. Anybody can just look up the story on Wikipedia. Come on,
right?
Anybody can just look at the list that says that's what the insignia does. You need to pick.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
If you're a kid with an NES, you're like, no, I'm going to pick it up, and I probably just got points or something. If nothing explodes when you pick it up, all right, I got points now. and we can move on.
Yeah. Well, and also
I think I
playing this, I rented it,
actively avoid.
and it didn't have a manual.
Yeah, me neither.
So that
I'm gonna
those
be honest.
games kills you every time.
I didn't know the communicator thing.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah. This is definitely a game that having the manual is imperative. Like you have to have it, or you don't understand anything that's going on. I mean, even understanding the loadout at the beginning of the stage, even to know what you're equipping at what point in time.
Would take the right items to the
Yeah,
level.
exactly. You go into the level and you're a kid, you just like hit A and you just fly right through that and you just pick whatever the cursor's on.
No, and we were talking before the show. I was in one of the neutral zones for the first time, and I think I didn't like the way one of the Federation soldiers was talking to me. So I just thought, oh, I'm going to start shooting this guy. And then all of a sudden, all the alarms go off, and it's like, oh shit, what did I do? And now I'm fighting for my life, and it's like, this is okay. Don't do that ever again. That's
I mean, they really, they provoke you a little bit. The ones that do talk to you in the neutral zones talk some shit.
Oh, they do.
I believe there's one that's like, "Get out of here, nerd," or some equivalent.
Oh, yeah.
Of that. Like he's way later on.
One guy's like, Federation dog. What is your
Yeah, they do. They don't talk
You
nice. That's for sure. I mean, I think that's the goal. They're trying to get you to pop off at least once, see you figure it out.
And they could have at least given you the satisfaction of when the guy lips off that you shoot him and he dies.
He just disappears and then you get attacked.
So I can't even get this. I can't even get the satisfaction I shot him for being smug about it. But no,
it was a test and you failed.
That's right.
I didn't. I don't have the temperament to be, I guess, lad.
Yeah.
Or I guess Nathan Ladd Spencer was what he's called in the later games, right?
Yeah. You have to earn your sunglasses that you wear into combat.
That's right.
I'm not Super Nathan yet.
Someday.
Man.
Did you imagine if this whole enterprise went terrible and they made another game where like, so you got to go and get Super Joe. He didn't make it. Then you got to go and get Super Nathan while you're there.
Yeah.
And then you got
the next Bionic Commando.
Like there's too many commandos in there. Like, what are you doing, guys? Come on.
Yeah, the next game would have been a licensed game, and they would have had Arnold in it. And then the real life Commando, and go get him.
Yeah, a movie tie-in. Yeah,
his sprite doesn't fit on the screen. That is something I will say. Like for a NES game, like this game has like pretty good sprite work and like looks really good. It does. Even the screens where they've animated the guys talking in the voice box and everything, like it's really well put together, and you can tell like they put some time into this game. Even the levels are pretty well. There's a lot of early platformers where the platforming parts of the level all look very samey, and like the colors are all the same. Like this game does a pretty good job of kind of separating that out, lets you feel like you're in a different part of the map when you're exploring. Like the little room.
The difficulty ramp up a bit when you get to like I think it's level 2 or 5. When you get out of the slime, now you're slipping around and it's moving you off platforms that you can't jump off of.
And like I will say, like the room that you go, every level has the same room where you go in to do the boss fight. That's pretty samey. It changes up like what happens in it, but for the most part, the room is the same.
You blow up the same thing at the end.
The same thing. Yep.
Yeah. You blow up the system.
And later,
which I always have commentary on, like the anarchist something like that. Like we want to take down the system. It's all right.
It's a system, all right. And then every once in a while, they throw in the little like turret guy that floats. And whenever you finally realize that all you have to do is run to the very end of the, swing to the very end of the level and avoid him a few times, you can just get behind him and basically take him out without any issue.
Yeah, once you get out of the system and you start firing off, then you usually okay. You can move around a bit, but there's not much to it.
it's a nice little loop going through the levels and then figuring that out. But yeah, even the like, I wish there was a little bit more difference of the guns per se, but it's NES. It's doing what it can do, I guess. Like really, the difference,
Yeah,
I guess, the
massive.
rockets are the bazooka,
Yep.
but like, it would have been cool to have like a machine gun or something more. Or it'd been nice to at least have a melee weapon.
Okay, yeah.
Like, because sometimes whenever they're coming in on the parachutes, they're like right on you.
There's some of the enemies they roll explosives at you. That would have been kind of
It would been nice to have one of those.
Yeah, throw them. Give me some bombs. Like, they definitely could have made a sequel to this game, Chris. It did, and added all those things. Because, like I said, this whole game basically just focuses around the grappling hook mechanic. Right. That's what they really want you to
add it
use.
to my list of TV remakes that I want.
I mean, I guess you can use that kind of as melee, but it doesn't. You can push them away. It doesn't kill them.
It doesn't hurt them. It inconveniences them. Yes. And occasionally you can inconvenience them to death.
You can pop them out through a gap and let them fall down. It's also funny, like some of the little gaps in there, and you're like, you could totally jump this gap. Like, it's not that wide.
Like, this is going to be harder to swing across than it would have been.
Exactly.
It is. I mean, that's the thing, right? Because you either grapple straight horizontally or diagonally. Yep. So if it is too small a gap, you've got to go back and
walk backwards quite a ways and then shoot
just right. And then if you're against a wall, then that's the end, because now you got to like double tap to grapple in midair.
Yeah. Midair grappling is not a great idea most of the time. At least not in my experience. Usually involves me falling to my death.
I mean, there's a couple level 4. There's, if you can manage it, you can kind of Tarzan your way across the ceiling, and it gets kind of, you feel like you want to because you get that vibe, right, where you just grapple without hitting.
Then like you hit a spot where the wall comes down just a little bit to leave an opening, right. And then you just like bounce off that.
Game over.
You're trying not to land on the platform because it's got like 3 guys who have parachuted into this building, so you can't stand there.
Yeah, like there's even parts of the game where like you're essentially underground, from what I can tell, and they're just like parachuting through the ground. Like, I don't know how that works, but they do it.
And like,
I think it's level 2 where you grapple up to a little spring. So you grapple up and then it springs you a little bit further, and now you've got to immediately grapple up, or you're just flying everywhere. And that's where it seems like it's parachute hell, because they're parachuting forever. Like, is there just a plane, or is there just like a tube above you dropping, like constantly shooting them at you? I don't understand.
Yeah, it's like, come on.
Guys from? Come on, there's a limit of parachutes you can possibly throw at you.
I know what the Empire's #1 export is. It's parachutes.
It is. Parachutes and bombs. These guys have a lot of bombs.
And they have no compunction to, like, we're going to send these parachuter guys to the doom. Like, we don't care how many get slaughtered. Yeah, they're all red shirts.
Literal.
Yeah. Endless red shirts.
Sometimes they just parachute into pits. And they
do. They never even hit a platform.
I mean, didn't somebody's like, hey, General, where are we parachuting here? Like, it doesn't matter. Just get out the plane.
Just go, but be careful. You're not going to be able to change once you pick.
Yep, your parachute is not controllable.
Your death is for the Federation. It's for the good.
I hadn't invented those little pulls that you pull on to change the direction of your parachute yet.
Your best bet is to land somewhere where it would be inconvenient to come get the thing you drop.
Or parachute yourself between 2 barrels. There you go. Now you're stuck.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because they know they know halfway up the screen they're parachuting to their doom, but they can't change direction. They're stuck. They just know what's coming.
Like, it makes me wonder, like, part of the story for this game should have been that guy has like 2 broken legs, and that's why he can't jump. because the enemies can jump, they can change, levels
true, they
and things
can.
like that. But you can't. Like, you're glued to the ground for some reason. But I think it's because you have 2 like splints on, and you're like,
they can drop straight down from platform.
Yeah, they can. You have a lot more mobility than I do.
My cousin would make little dialogues of the guys when if they're a level above you, they would walk back and forth 3 or 4 times, and then they'd be like, "All right, I'm going for it!" Ah! How they turn their shoulder and then they jump down to like certain doom, but they're like, "Let's do this! We're going for it!
This is the one.
I'm gonna be the one to stop, lad."
I do like how easy they're not like meat bags. Like they only take a couple shots usually and they're done. Like, I do like that part of it. Like, it's not some NES games are horrible about it. Where like, you're going to shoot this guy 45 times and he's finally going to leave you alone.
And then you backtrack too far. He's respawned. He's back.
Yeah. This game does that though with the parachute guys. If you go from one side to the other, they'll respawn and they'll start popping back up.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's usually like, one shot with the bazooka or, just a couple shots with the regular gun and they're gone. So it's not too much of a nuisance.
Yeah, I guess when I think about it, when you level up your weapon and you're using a missile launcher and you're firing it at regular infantry, like in reality, they're blowing up everywhere. Yeah. Their guts, they're blood bags, right? Like, so it's pretty awful to think about what.
I guess one shot's pretty accurate in that situation.
Yes. Right? I mean, even with the regular gun, like 2 shots, you have 1 shot pretty much did it, and then you have the last shots to verify that you did it.
Just a double tap.
Double tap, yeah, double tap. And then I guess we could talk a little bit about the boss battle. And as you mentioned earlier, like what happens. I mean, there's just something about, like, I can imagine playing this in Japan and being like, this is a revived Adolf Hitler. Like, there is no worse, like, boss fight like you can do. Like, this is it. Like, you got to take this guy out. And then, of course,
I mean, there's a bit of a situation that's there. He has a bit of a, like, not reanimated corpse, but he's a bit of a robot.
Yeah,
he's very Futurama head in a jar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right, you could tell. That maybe that's where Futurama got its influence for that. But yes, in our game, he's Master D, which was that Master Doom, and they just didn't have enough characters.
Maybe.
I'm a little confused with that one.
Yeah, this was super nerve-wracking for me because I remember like the first time I got there, this was like, oh my man, I've never been this far in the game, and you have to aim in the window of the helicopter. Yep. And you got 1 shot at this, and you have to use this special weapon. Oh my god, I'm never gonna get this right. And I don't know if I pulled it off the first time, but I was sweating like crazy when I was approaching it.
It's funny, all this build up, and then it's really, in the end, it's not much of a boss battle,
Yeah.
No.
It's a pretty quick ordeal.
And then it's got a bit of the, like you were mentioning, Metroid. It's got a bit of that Metroid feel to it now, because now the base is exploding and you got 60 seconds to grapple.
Yeah, that's where your grappling skills better be on point. You want to burn up in
Right.
there after doing all that. And yes, as you defeat Master D, his head explodes, and it's like the scene of the game. You're just like, this. This is what I came for. Which,
I mean, it's oddly satisfying in a sociopathic little way,
yeah,
but sure.
I mean, this was the thrill aspect of the NES, I guess, for this game. Like, oh look, the head explodes.
You were the Rambo general, right?
Yeah,
It's like when I went back and watched one of the Hot Shots films, either that or it's the sequel where they're like, "This is the bloodiest movie ever," and it's just Charlie Sheen on a body on a mound of corpses firing off and killing
yeah,
everything around, and that's sort of the feeling we get, right? It's just like you're just there to kill everything in sight.
this is true. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I have a whole lot more to even say about the gameplay part of it. I mean, it's a fun game, and what it achieves with how simple it is very good. Like they did a good job. It's spot on. It's not very long. You know, it's a little nerve wracking to get the game figured out at first. But once you dial the game in, you know, it's a quick, like you should be able to beat this game in like an hour and a half, 2 hours if you know how to do it. If you know where you're going and everything. Which is good because there's no saves.
Yeah,
So
none at all.
Right?
this is the game where like you leave your NES
No.
on when you're a kid trying to figure this out.
Yeah, you get the continues, but you can't
Nope,
turn it
can't
off.
turn
No
it off.
passwords.
No pass. Yeah, it's kind of
Yep.
crazy that in 1988 they didn't have passwords yet.
Yeah,
Or
it's
didn't
it's
have
so
passwords for this.
it's so like advanced and special in so many ways, and then like it can't even have like a password system.
Exactly.
Which I mean, in that
I
era
mean-
more than any other, or certainly it was a big issue at the time. Was like the trade off. Maybe they physically couldn't put it in there. You know, that's fine.
Limitations.
It's not
I mean,
egregiously long or anything like that.
No. There's definitely longer NES games out there
yeah.
that didn't have passwords or save systems.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, like you were saying, I appreciate the sound,
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
look, the gameplay, everything really works. I can forgive that.
This game definitely had that like Capcom polish at that time
Oh yes.
where, you know, everything was as top notch as it could be except for the save system. But we'll forgive them for that. Because
And they never recaptured that ever again in the Bionic
Nope.
Commando game.
and again, I would totally, if they come out today and said, "Hey, we're doing like a 2D HD remake of Bionic Commando," I'd be all over it. I'd play this game all over it.
Here's one money for sure.
They could infinitely make the game better just by adding a jump feature. Like, there's plenty of buttons nowadays. We could totally jump.
Like
I'd
even
still
if
go
it's not a
without the jump.
particularly good
I-
jump, but if
Oh,
you can
yeah.
maybe jump like one block over.
Or even if they made it to where, like, if you pushed through a sandbag, you just kind of hurdled it. You know?
Okay, I would take that as a fair trade.
It doesn't even have to be a button.
Yeah,
You know, just if you go up to it and you try to go beyond it, he just goes. I'll take that.
I'll give Will a hurdle. That's what it will do. I'll
All right.
concede the hurdle.
Well, if we can do that, then all right.
Or even like handle jump how like Zelda handles jump in like N64 era. You just go towards the gap and he just jumps over it if he can. If not, he doesn't. I'll take that.
I mean, if you play Super Mario Run on mobile, there's some things where Mario will just hurdle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you'll it's like a palm horse over stuff. That
Okay.
you can have that. Nathan Spencer can hurdle.
He's
pommel
learned how to
horse
vault
everything.
himself over small obstacles.
His legs have healed now.
Small
so-
up, right? Because that's where the grappling hook doesn't
Yeah.
do well. Small things.
Yeah, there's way too many instances where like something's way too tight to maneuver with the grappling hook. Like it would have been way easier just to be like, okay, add a little like just a hop. He just needs a hop over this. It's like it's not even the distance that his walk stride is. Like he should be able to do this.
This shouldn't be as daunting as it is.
No.
I mean, we didn't mention like when you get to further on in the game, there are certain aspects and traps that are more alien than they are Well, they're definitely not Nazis, so I'm almost wondering like where that comes from, right? Like the plants that just come out and they consume you in one bite,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
that's you fly. Like and there's some insects that like that's not of Earth, that's for sure. So like I'm starting to I kind of wonder it does kind of go off the rails a bit that way where this isn't a Federation versus whatever combat anymore. We're getting
Yeah.
aliens in here somehow.
It definitely does have that like
yeah.
weird twist to it with how the environment is a little bit, and it's not explained in any way. Like it's just there. Like, I don't even.
Their experiments.
Yeah, it could be, but I mean, like they don't even give you the satisfaction of like talking about it inside of one of the tapped phone calls or anything. You know, it just
There's not even one who's like, Commander, what's with these weird plants? Like,
yeah, what are these bugs?
A plant ate Steve, and I don't feel like it should have been able to do that.
Yeah, we haven't seen him in a few days.
Does anybody know if Super Joe was consumed by an alien? Because we might as well turn around now.
Does anybody know if Joe knows about the plants?
You just butt in, like, hey, while you guys are talking about the plants,
hey, if you're heading for Area 6, these giant things will
you're
come
going to head to Area 6,
you.
probably just don't.
Yeah. Skip Area 6. There's a safe place on the other side.
You give the plants long enough, they'll handle it.
Can I call in a firebombing to Area 6 so we can clear everything
just
up
start over
before I go in?
Carpet bomb it.
Can we orange whatever
Agent Orange?
Yeah.
Agent Orange for plants. Just bring some pesticide in or herbicide.
I don't think that's going to work. These plants are eating people.
Do I have to face the man eating plants first? Are you sure you guys can do something about it beforehand?
Apparently not, because they didn't do anything about it. They just send you in there like, oh, you got that grappling hook. You're good to go. You totally have this.
I mean, that's the funny part about it is like, Lad is like, well, can Lad open this can for me? Yeah, grappling hook. Can Lad survive super mutant plants? Yeah, no problem.
It's like, I don't even remember. Can you like stun the plants or anything like with the grappling hook? Like you can't do anything to them, right?
No, you can't even shoot them. They're invulnerable to your bullets.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like it's totally just an obstacle on the level. Like there's nothing you could do at all. It's no different than the little fireball thing in Mario.
It's insta-death. It's insta-death because if you're in there, it kills you.
Yeah, those. Man, after you said that, I remember, but I totally forgot about the parts with the plants. Gosh, I think I tried to force myself to forget those parts.
Well, and the beginning of the level starts off funny because you're supposed to grab to go across a couple of gaps, and you can't really get all the way. So you've got to wade through some, I guess, quicksand. Sure. And so after you've got there, and you're like, all right, okay, and then you're like, okay, these things look funny. These big bugs are flying around, and then instantly you're like, oh, what the hell was that?
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing. Like, this is definitely in that time period where you learn from playing. Like, you're like, oh, this thing kills me in one hit. This doesn't, So there's definitely some of that frustration, but, well, no, I mean that in like no visual depiction of how much health things are taken away from you whenever you're getting attacked. But no, I mean, you just learn as you go. That's just how this one works.
Did you guys spend a lot of time grinding with the pellets to...
I did once, and then I decided this is taking too long. And
it's not worth it.
Yeah.
See, in the parachuting hell, where they're just guys falling, it just seemed pretty easy. Because I just have to step a couple of...
That's where I did it too.
And there's
I'm not a patient man,
right?
Chris.
Like I know you. I don't even know what the limit is. Like, I know you can. I've 6, right? I think I've been up to 6 too, but that takes a while to get to. Like, you have to collect quite a few to get it up there. But Yeah, the
Yeah, I never got an idea of what. Like, I never looked up how many you had to
yeah, I
collect
never
to
have
move
Yeah,
a
it's
up.
like an
I
indication
don't even
for
know.
that would have been nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right, like a meter or something.
Yes, that would have been nice. Yeah, I know the level you're talking about where they're parachuting in, and you can like just keep making them respawn in that one area when you walk forward and then walk backwards
Yeah.
to go back to them. Yeah, you can collect quite a few that way. But I mean, even then, like to get 6, you're going to be standing there for at least probably 15, 20 minutes doing that over and over again.
I mean, only because I could go up uh, a couple of screens with parachute hell and lose all 6 right away.
Yeah,
That was what kept me motivated because, like, yeah, I'll burn through those 6 really fast if I don't.
yeah, it just forces you to get good at that one level if you don't have them. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
I totally forgot about the pellets too right off the bat. It's like I know there's some kind of distinction there, but again, I can like
Yeah.
there's nothing that tells you how much you're losing whenever you get hit by certain things.
no, when my grappling wasn't great, like at level 4, I was even just doing now, I would fall into the spikes, and then it's the frustrating thing because you could
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
bounce a couple of times. And you're like, grapple, grapple, nope, and you're like, it's like a slow burning death where you like,
Yeah,
I
like he
can't
might as well just
do any
die
buttons,
on contact with those.
might as well.
right?
It would
It
be
would be less
absolutely.
frustrating that way.
Yeah, especially if there's nothing near you to grapple onto, and you're just bouncing. There's nothing you could do.
You're bouncing off spikes. That's the
That seems
that's
that's like the
kind of
one thing
morbid there
you
too.
you shouldn't be able to do on spikes.
Yeah,
Jump more off the
three
spikes
Yeah.
three
and you can
chances
off the
before
ground.
impalement. You know.
Yeah, it's like you,
All
you
right.
can't you can't hop over this crate, but you can bounce in the spike pit.
There's a bunch of balls in there, and then like the balls all disperse, and then there's the spikes. All
Oh
right.
man,
I mean, I think unless you could think of anything that we're forgetting, Chris, I think that's basically Bionic Commando in a nutshell.
that's Bionic Commando. I love it. It's frustrating, but I love it.
Couldn't find any really fun facts, and we've already talked about all of the
I think
kind of
all the
like
fun
the
facts have that kind of shadow on them.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
This game isn't the kind of game that has fun facts,
The fun is definitely in quotation marks for this one.
for sure. I mean,
I mean it's a quirky
yeah.
story. It's a different,
Yeah.
it's unique
If you
in
describe
development
fun
that
as
way.
exploding the guy's head, then it's there for you. Or being infinitely frustrated in some areas. There's plenty of fun for you. Um, but yeah, like I said, that's Bionic Commando. We did
Yep.
it. So
The last the last thing I'll say is I'm looking at the overworld map right now, and it just looks like someone with, I don't know, attention deficit sort of drew this up because there's no pattern, rhyme, or reason why anything. Like, why is level 1 beside 13 or 2, 3? The numbers don't
no,
make
yeah,
never
you
made
don't
any
play them
Yeah.
sense
in
to me.
order or anything. You
There's
Mm-mm.
just
not,
go.
no, but why are they
Yeah,
numbered
it
at
should
all
just be
then?
a box at that point or a dot on the map.
The box, or I
Well, I
guess
mean, they need
a
some
location. I
way
guess they have to.
to designate between
Oh
them, since they'll
yeah, that's
talk
true.
about them in other areas to give you hints about what you need.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
But
I,
they could have
I just
sequenced them. They could have sequenced them a little better. It's fine.
It's a funny sequence. It looks like a strange order.
Yeah,
Why
we
they
need to
call
go
one
like
5 and one
1
16?
to like 16 to go to 4.
Yeah,
it's because you got to get that
yeah,
item
it's
that
weird.
you need to go to the other one. And if they put it in
Yep,
order, then it's just not fun.
I guess so. I guess so.
I mean, if you go back to the Japanese versions, the Nazis were never known for anything but order or organization.
Oh man,
It's code.
it is code. You have to
It's
break it
code.
to figure the game
That's
out.
it. I kind of wish they'd done. I know they did the remastered and all that junk on like PS3 and stuff. I kind of wish they'd gone the Mega Man 9 or 10 route instead and just made
I do
another one
too.
that looked like an NES game.
Yes, that would have been way better.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right?
there's a reason why you can buy Bionic Commando on PS3 or Xbox 360 for $5. Um, it's really, in a lot of ways, not worth $5. I highly recommend that you find a different way to play it versus paying for it. Uh,
I mean, in the last year, we've got Streets of Rage 4, and we've got Shredder's Revenge. Please, my Switch collection would be complete if I had a
I mean,
Bionic Commando
Chris, if you're just
HD.
hankered for like some grappling action, I can recommend that you play Flint
All
Hook on the Switch. It's
Okay.
right.
it's
Okay.
it's not Bionic Commando, but it heavily depends on grappling, and it's very skill based with it. It's definitely something I think you'd enjoy if like that's your part of the game that that you enjoy the most is the grappling aspect, which it sounds like it is. Um,
Well, I definitely check out the
oh
arcade
yeah,
version
$2,
first.
but definitely throw Flint Hook on your
Yeah.
wish list. And next time it goes on sale,
All right.
it's a game that came out a long time ago on Switch. Like it was in the first year, I believe, first or second year, because I remember I bought it through limited run pretty early. It was like one of their early, maybe like in the top like first 10 Switch games they released. So definitely,
So then they can just focus on making the Zelda 2 remake, and then
yeah,
I'll be happy.
might be waiting a little while for that one. I'm with you though. Like I'm ready for that, but I'm just happy we got it on the Game and Watch anniversary
Mm.
deal
Right.
because I enjoy playing it on that versus the. I mean, I obviously played on the Switch too. There's just so many ways to play all those classic Nintendo games nowadays, but there's just something about the Game and Watch. I'm
Yeah.
a handheld person at heart, so I like playing those. Well, I think we're done with Bionic Commando, so we'll go ahead and move into the outro. And I'll give each of you guys a last chance to say any final words on the game, and also a chance to promote any content that you want to promote. I don't know, Chris, if you've started. I know you've talked about doing some things in the past, but I don't know if you've started anything.
No, I guess, John, I just want
Yeah.
to say thanks for having me. This is a really great episode. I really appreciate doing this one. This was a lot of fun. I love this game. I don't really have anything to promote. I still have that review on the Nintendo
Yeah.
Dads YouTube channel. If you guys haven't checked that out on, can't remember what it was now.
Oh, there you
Bush
go.
Hockey League.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. But other than that, no. This was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate
man.
the episode. Look forward to hearing it.
Anytime. You're welcome to come on and talk about any games that we do. I don't shy away from anybody. There's no limit. So, Will, you can go next.
All right. Yeah, thanks for having me back. This is a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed both times that I've been on these shows. I like talking about old kind of off the beaten path kind of games. You do one for the Gilligan's Island game on NES. I can do that. I can be here for that.
Yeah. I mean, just anytime we have time to get into it, we can do it.
I'm still over at Megadads, megadads.org, youtube.com/megadads. I still stream on my own, twitch.tv/wondrouswill, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. Yeah. Or you can just shout at me on Twitter at wondrouswill. That also works.
Awesome.
I don't have a life. I'm around.
Yeah, you can shout at me for all the stuff. I'm at Chris HL94.
I'm sure that everybody enjoys listening to you guys talk in great detail about these games. It's always a fun time for me as well, and that's why I like doing it. So thanks for listening on Topic Retro. It's part of the retrologic family of podcasts. If you'd like to send your personal experiences for the next show but don't have Discord, please send them to ontopicretro@gmail.com. The next game for On Topic Retro will be Mario vs. Donkey Kong Miniland Mayhem. This is a retro rewind game. So this is a game that as a community we've all been playing this month. Started on the 1st, and the next show will wrap that up, and we'll have everybody on that wants to talk about that game. If you'd like to share your experiences with that game, but you're not a part of our Discord, you can send your experience to that email address that I just mentioned earlier. If you would like to join our wonderful non-toxic Discord, you can go to retrologic.games for details on how to join. There's a link there. And you can find all the other Retrologic podcasts and blog posts that Sam does as well on that site. Just basically everything. We have a little bit of everything. I really wish that we had somebody that wanted to do a retro TV show movie podcast in our family. I've voiced it several times. I don't think I have the bandwidth to do it as much as I'd love to. But that's definitely something I think would be interesting to have. We have a music podcast that would be nice, or that is nice to listen to. They talk in great detail about lots of music related topics, albums. They just recently did one on albums that have reached 25 million sales. So yeah, lots of great stuff over at retrologic.games. That's it for this episode. Stay tuned for more. We'll see you guys later. Bye now.